Hosta, and today I'm going to show you how to turn an ordinary composition notebook into a beautiful nature journal. Gesso is an artist's primer, and it's like a base coat. And in fact, if you didn't have gesso, you probably could use like a regular base coat primer that you would use to paint on your walls. You might even be able to use white paint. But gesso is great, and it's useful for a lot of other things in making hand-painted paper. So I'm just going to take a little bit out into a container, and I'm going to cover this whole thing with the gesso. I like to use acrylic paints because they're really permanent. They turn into plastic basically. They are plastic when they're dry, but if you're working with kids and you'd rather not use something quite as permanent, you can also use tempera paints, and then you could cover your journal with clear contact paper. But I like the acrylic because it creates almost like a seal on the paper. So I'm just going to start doing some crazy kind of mixture. Just put some brush strokes down and use a sea sponge, which is one of my favorite ways of sort of modeling up the colors. You can use a regular house cleaning sponge if that's what you have. One of the things I like to do is use like just household art items to make different kinds of designs. This is just the cap from another tube of paint, and I'm just turning it upside down and making like a funky little stamp. And I'm wild about gold paint, so I've got one of these. This is just like a foam roller, and I put some gold paint on it, and I'm just doing a few little... Now this is one of my all-time favorite tools. It's called a spatter screen, and I've seen these in art supply stores on the internet, and basically what it is, it's splattering without having to use a toothbrush. You water down your paint a little bit so that you create some surface tension on that screen like that, and then you just blow through the screen and it will create a splatter that comes through. This design that I'm going to do on the cover was inspired by a project on Flickr. The username is ArtsyT, and she's an art teacher, and this project that she did was called The Littlest Birds Sing the Prettiest Songs. So I've used her design as an inspiration. Do check out ArtsyT's Flickr account for lots of really great ideas. So I have a piece of newspaper here that I just pulled out of our local newspaper, and I'm going to use Mod Podge to put this on at the bottom. And I kind of want it to go off of the edge, so I'll trim that later. So now I'm going to take some decorative borders that I made. These are borders that are made out of collage, and I have a video where you can learn how to make them. They're very simple, but they kind of create a really neat frame for your work. And I'm also using paper that has been treated with positionable mounting adhesive by 3M. So this paper already has adhesive on it, and so you don't have to use glue sticks or Mod Podge. And I also have a video that will show you how to put this adhesive onto collage papers, and it just makes it so easy to stick. This is a little tree that I have already made out of collage, and I used the same kind of glue paper, and in the same manner that I made the border, put stripes down, but instead of cutting them in a straight line, I cut them out into this sort of teardrop shape. So I wanted to make a bird, and I thought, what about a bird who was kind of singing about a journal? So I've cut out this blackbird, and I gave it a big open beak, and here is where I'm going to put the word. The design is really starting to come around, and I'm going to add some legs to our bird with just black acrylic and a very thin brush. So usually I would put like a little dot on the eye, but I found I've been working out of a scrap box right here. In this box are pieces from other collages that I didn't use. You can see there's like a house, another little house, lots of the decorative borders. Here's an arm from Mavis and her Marvelous Mooncakes. There's an eyeball. And I never throw anything away because it might become part of something else. And I found this eye. I'm not really sure what it was from, but I think I'm going to use it on this bird because I think it looks wacky. Kind of, it looks like a cat eye on a bird. Now, a really great little trick for making an eyeball come to life is to go in with a little bit of white paint or white ink. A little bit of white paint or white ink, and all you do, get a tiny little paintbrush. I'm just putting a little bit in my hand right here, and you just make a little spot, and that gives a little bit of life to that eyeball. And then I'm just going to finish up with a few little dots going up the stems of these plants here. So now that the whole design is done, I'm going to touch up this whole thing. I'm going to seal it with Mod Podge. So I've got my Mod Podge, and I'm just going to go right over it. I don't want to rub too much on the paint parts because they're not as dry as I'd like them to be. If they blur a little bit, that'll be okay. It'll probably look really neat. And this is going to just seal it up and make it a little bit more durable. The journal looks terrific. It's all finished. I've added some details with gold tape. I've put in favorite words from my Shel Silverstein poem, and I've even added a little grommet here on the back so that we can have a ribbon marker to mark the places. To learn more about me and my work, visit me at darhosta.com.